Hello, welcome to Boulder Bookstore's YouTube channel. My name is Stephanie. I'm the event and marketing coordinator here at Boulder Bookstore. And today I'm going to talk about some nonfiction books. I tend to go more towards fiction, but when I also really enjoy nonfiction, but in particular I have noticed over the years that I seem to have a thing for nonfiction that's about food. So I thought I'd talk about some of my favorite books about food. Although I guess the book that I'm going to start with, which is Mary Roach's Gulp, isn't directly about food so much as it is about how we take in and process food. Mary Roach is one of my favorite authors of all time. I will read anything and everything she writes. She has a new book coming out in the fall called Fuzz, which I'm very excited about. But this one, Gulp, is about specifically the alimentary canal. So kind of talking about, she starts in the mouth and the nose and the tongue and kind of takes you farther down through the stomach and the intestines and of course the anus, because if you know anything about Mary Roach, you know that she loves to get into things that are funny and gross and just really just get in there and talk about it. And if you haven't read a Mary Roach book before, sort of her style is she's a journalist at heart, and a science journalist really, and she likes to take a subject that she doesn't know anything about and just do a bunch of research and watch a bunch of experiments and just kind of learn everything she can about this thing. And she travels all over the world to talk to all sorts of different scientists and different kinds of people about things relating to whatever she's talking about. So, you know, when she's talking about smell, she does a olive oil tasting and kind of tries to be involved in getting to be an olive oil taster. She doesn't pass, but but it's still really funny. And and she's talking about she talks to scientists in Amsterdam, I think. There's an institute that they have there that's all about food and things. So she goes and talks to a bunch of different people there, and she goes to a prison for one of it and talks to a prisoner who's known for hooping, which is transporting things into prisons through the anus. And it's just, she just covers a lot of different things. It's not like a super involved, in-depth, this isn't like a scientific treatise in any way. This is definitely like you don't need to have a deep understanding of science in order to understand what she's talking about. She definitely, you never feel like she's talking down to you, but it's just you always kind of feel like she's sitting next to you just relating her crazy adventures and all the things she learned along the way. So, Mary Roach, Gulp, awesome. All right, next up, Bianca Bosker, Cork, Dork. This is one of the most Mary Roach-esque books that I've read that's not Mary Roach. So Bianca Bosker is also a journalist, and she kind of had a similar approach where she wanted to know more about the world of wine and sommeliers specifically, the people who, are professional wine tasters and drinkers and recommenders. So she decided, she's like, I don't know anything about this, I'm gonna go and learn everything. And then in the process just kind of becomes obsessed with being a sommelier. So she basically decides that in 1 year's time she is going to take the test to become a certified sommelier. And it's sort of everything she does along the way to learn how to do this. So there's so there's a lot of time spent in, the Napa Valley area and talking to scientists about the science of smell and taste and just the insane things that people do to study for this test and to try and learn how to taste wine and how to drink wine and how to be able to take a sip of something and then say that you can figure out what the year is and what bank is it the left bank or the right bank in the Bordeaux region. It's crazy stuff, but it's insane everything that people go through to do this test. Oh my gosh. But it's super fascinating, and Bianca is very funny, and she's got lots of mishaps along the way, and just it's very entertaining. So if you don't need to know anything about wine to really enjoy this book. All right. Next up, The Language of Food by Jan Jurafsky. So Dan Jurafsky is a linguist, and the subtitle of the book is A Linguist Reads the Menu. So essentially the book is about two different aspects of food and language. One is about the origin of words as they relate to food. For example, like the origin, like ketchup. You might not have ever noticed, or maybe you have noticed but never really thought about how, Heinz tomato ketchup, 57 varieties. First of all, why is it called tomato ketchup, and why 57 varieties? Well, he does a little bit of research and figures out that, ketchup was not, in its origin, comes from, I think, China, and is like more of like a fish sauce, and that's why there's like so many different spellings of ketchup, because it's like originally a Chinese word. So that, and it's had all sorts of different iterations, like in the 1800s, walnut ketchup and mushroom ketchup were very popular. So it's only really been within the past 100 years or so that tomato ketchup is a thing that's come about. So there's things like that where he's studying, like taking words that are for foods and sort of doing some research. And the other is kind of examining the words we use to describe food, and specifically in sort of marketing senses. Like there's like where he works and his students, they do a study where they just like analyze like thousands, they use AI to help with this, but they analyze like thousands of menus and are able to basically tell like the cost of the food based on how many words are used in the menus and the types of words. So like really fancy restaurants, there's not going to be any descriptions for the food. In the middle, you're gonna have like menus that are super, super long with all sorts of different things and wording that's trying to convince you that the food is good. So it's stuff like that. And as someone who likes words and likes foods, this was a very fun book to read. All right, last book, Consider the Fork, A History of How We Eat and Cook by B. Wilson. So this is a history of food, kind of going from the very earliest of times up through now, and the chapters are broken out sort of by cooking, so chapter 1 is pots and pans, and chapter 2 is knife, and chapter 3 is fire. And she studies, she talks about sort of how food has evolved for humanity over the centuries and the millennia, and how the different things affect how food it was made. So like in England and in France, where they had tons and tons of trees, they made a lot of roasts because you had a lot of wood, so they could, spend hours, and have someone like turning a spit cooking this food. Whereas in some Asian places, like in Japan and in China, where there wasn't nearly as many trees, or not, the trees needed to be used for other things, they would tend to cut all their food very small and then cook it so that they didn't have to use as much fuel, so it would cook faster. So that sort of stuff I find super fascinating. So Consider the Fork by B. Wilson. All right, that's it for me today. Thank you so much for watching. If you like what we're doing here, we'd really appreciate it if you would like this video and subscribe to our channel and share it with all your friends and family. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.